So the petition isn't just about emails. You've brought 4 allegations against Mr. Crow, and I'm sure he can defend himself. I feel kind of awkward, trying to defend you for yourself, but anyway, I'll just go through. So first, there's malfeasance. When you violate the law, you can just apologize. When Mr. Kraft insults a citizen for no reason, that's fine. When Mr. Walker refuses to answer questions from the council, that's fine. When Ms. Tom refuses lawful requests from the council, that's fine. When Mr. Crow attempts to discover whether the city is obeying the law, it's a crime. It's absolute nonsense. At the very worst, Mr. Crow is a whistleblower, and if you weren't in compliance with the law, the public has a right to know. Second, violation of the public trust, and I cannot believe these words are coming from you. You have no ground to stand on here, and neither does the rest of the council. Mr. Jennings negotiates in bad faith and accuses his opponents of intransigence, my bad. Mr. Kraft shows outright contempt for the public and pretends to be the arbiter of fact. Mr. Glickard throws sexist, offensive comments at Ms. Carr with impunity. Mr. Sharp is on the verge of sleep through important council business. Mr. Robert under his breath, so we can't understand it. The idea that Mr. Crow, who has been responsible and respectful, has violated the public trust is absolute nonsense. Now, nothing I have said is a personal attack. These are all facts that have been observed by the rest of the people.
I do ask you not to attack the members of council.
All right. Third, the breach of ethical responsibilities. But what are your ethical responsibilities? You refuse to listen to your constituents. You hired Mr. Walker after he was kicked out of his profession's ethical organization, and then changed the rules so he could remain your personal agent. You award single bid contracts to outside companies at inflated rates. You suspend firefighters, whom we all once called heroes, out of vengeance and pettiness. You declare pressing concerns unfit for public discussion. You call your opponents liars, conspirators, extremists, malcontents, belittling legitimate concerns and criticism until our only recourse is recall and outrage. And you have the gall to say that Mr. Crow has breached his ethical responsibilities. It would be laughable if it weren't so disgusting. Fourth, interfering with the functioning of the council. But what functioning is that exactly? You possibly have interfered with it. Despite his objections, despite hours of public support for his position, you were able to outsource our EMS without delay, contemplation, or public input. Any motion he brings is instantly voted down 5-2. No matter how many times he speaks, no matter what he says, or how reasonable his arguments are, the business of council, the union busting, the outsourcing, the ignorance, the lies, continues unimpeded. And with the way this council has functioned, I would welcome a little interference. Your motives are obvious. You've known about your actions for months, and you've been holding it close to your chest as a trump card. It's no coincidence that this petition is brought up just before Mr. Crow decides whether to file to run for re-election. You're hoping he might just decide not to run, but I don't think you're counting on it. What you're counting on is that it will cast enough of a shadow on his campaign that any challenger can rely on that alone to win. You're counting on it costing him money to retain a lawyer in the middle of an expensive campaign. You're giving his enemies fuels and his supporters doubt. You don't care that your case holds no water, or that Robert McCulloch, himself an unethical, illegitimate public official, will take up the case. All you need to do is keep this process going through April. And if it succeeds, you get your wish. If it fails, it's no loss because you can just fit it as impartial legal proceedings if you're still in office come April. The first time I spoke at a council meeting, I spoke about the value of civility and compromise, but I don't care about that anymore. Do what you're going to do. I'm not standing up here to speak politely or argue or ask for reasonable debate. I'm just here to remind you what a contemptible job you do, because you need to be reminded of that as often as possible.